Alrighty, everyone, we're going to get into the in-depth part of tablet install version 2 here. As you all know, the tablet is going to go into my 2010 Ford Explorer. The majority of my project is kind of unchanged. I've made a bunch of upgrades and as you'll see, I've abandoned the idea of ever using this tablet outside of a car. And to be honest with you, and it kind of stinks because I am using it for my, my car PC, but the tablet itself kind of stinks. It's not the best tablet. There's other cheap tablets out there that are faster, with better screens, with better batteries, with better, better hardware. So it still works perfect for me as the carputer because it is simple, it's stripped down, it's set up, it's already figured out. It still works. It works 100% like it did before. So without dragging this out too far, I want to show you what I've done to the tablet. I'm going to show you some of the pieces. I will likely go over a couple assembly features that I have going on here, but the next videos will show it going into the car. I'll try to break it up a little bit so it's not too boring here. So this is still the Nexus 7 2012 edition. You'll kind of remember if you followed the other videos that I've tried really hard not to modify the tablet intrusively. So I tried to add extra pogo connectors, which I successfully did, and I actually ported all of the USB pins over to the pogo pins, and I actually the original pins, I completely wiped them out, wiped the inside connection out, and reconnected my USB. So I actually had full USB connectivity, including on the go, as well as an on and off switch hookup, and I had to use the ground wire twice. It was kind of tricky. It worked well though. It worked well. What I did worked well. The pins installed and everything, but the bracket that I tried to slide this into didn't work. Anyways, besides that, I tried to keep this in one piece. As you'll be able to tell when I flip this over, I've completely abandoned that idea. I am full-on permanent install mode here. So you're going to notice a couple things. One is I've chopped the cover up, and I'll explain that in a second. The other is I'm still using the battery. I tried to abandon the battery. As a matter of fact, I have I have the battery board from the whatchamacallit, the factory battery, and I tried to wire it up so that it would run off of constant 5 volts off the battery. Well, it kind of works, it kind of didn't, and now I think I fried that in testing, so that's just garbage. The battery still works great. It still holds full charge. If I'm using it super heavy, sometimes it'll drop down a few percent, but for the most part it stays, it stays up, stays at 100% charge anyway. So we're gonna just forget about the power for now and leave it like it is. It's also the reason why there's a big gaping hole in the back, because I had my power board in there and power wires coming out. So the cover's toast, and I could abandon the cover completely, except actually I'm not really sure why I haven't abandoned the cover completely. The Wi-Fi antenna is still intact over here. You'll notice that the GPS antenna, however, is gone, and I have a mini connector soldered to those. This connector here actually interfaces with the power switch, because I have and when I go to install it in the car, I'll show it to you. I have a membrane switch that's surface mounted, and then it has like a flat ribbon cable. So I surface mounted it to a switch blank and have it behind my dash. So I have connectivity to the power switch. The power gen dual port car adapter here. What I did was I cut off the lighter socket end, and I soldered wires directly to the board, and I put a Dean's connector on there because I'm also working on my RC stuff, so I had some Dean's connectors. I took the speakers off. There's no more speakers. I've disconnected the USB cable, and I folded it back on itself. The reason for trimming the case the way I did is you'll see in a few minutes when I show you how it's mounted. I needed clearance, but it's gutted as much as it can be gutted. The on-the-go cable goes there. It's a nice little package, stays together. So I still might, the Wi-Fi antenna I might ditch that. The GPS antenna, what I ended up doing, and again when I install it in the car, you'll see where this goes. There's a little access cover that hides a bolt from my dash, and I popped that out. And the GPS antenna peels up off the cover very nicely. It stays super sticky, so it's stuck on there. I soldered my 2 wires. I don't know how the GoPro does on close-up focusing. I apologize if it doesn't do well. So you can see how I did that. The wires are soldered directly to it. I kind of zip tied this wire to this little flash from the casting for some strain relief, and then so that pops into my dash right under the windshield, and then the hookup wire just runs into the behind the radio and plugs right in. It works good. I have a little knot here because I'm going to remove about a foot of wire. It occurred to me that having thicker wire is probably not the best for a GPS antenna extension, and it probably ought to be shielded also. So I think I might actually use a an XM radio antenna that I have laying around. The wiring, I might just steal the wiring off of it because that should be, shielded and thin, and I might get a better signal strength out of it. Might be losing some of my signal strength. It works good, it's just not as good as when it was stuck straight to the board. So that's that little trick. What I'm doing for wiring now is I am also running an aftermarket radio. I'm using a Pioneer head unit. So what I did was, here's my Ford adapter, the main adapter. This is the subwoofer adapter. And what I did is I checked the circuit. It's got plenty of room for me to attach. As much as this tablet draws, it's nowhere near drawing more than the circuit can handle. So what I did was I just tapped straight off of the radio's accessory and ground, and I put the other Dean's connector. So now what I do when I go out to the car is the first thing I do is I take this stuff and I plug it into the factory harness, and then everything else just plugs right in. It just plugs right into the back of the head unit, plugs into the tablet, good to go. Speaking of the head unit, there's not really a spot on the Ford dash to mount both a tablet and a head unit. So what I did an old trick that some of the carputer guys do, and some other guys do it too. I remote mounted the faceplate. This head unit does not have a CD player. It's perfect. It's like 4.5 inches total, even when it was all together. It has 3 sets of preamp outputs. It has rear USB, rear auxiliary input. I didn't want anything coming off the front. It's got a place for mic because it does have Bluetooth, and it has a place for a wired remote. Also very important for me. So I used a piece of ribbon cable, old IDE ribbon cable. It worked great. I split it down to the just the amount that I needed. I soldered it to the board. The other end of the Pioneer connector I soldered to the other connector to the end, basically. So the glue's on there because I was trying to mount it a different way, but pretty simple. Plugs right in. So it works great. I've used it for a while now. It just it works. It works fine. No problems whatsoever. I probably could have made this a mile shorter, but it is what it is. I do have the faceplate mount, and I did originally have this glued into place, but the problem was in order to take everything apart, and you'll see how this is mounted in a second. In order to take all that apart, I had to remove this whole thing, and it was just kind of clunky. So now what'll happen is I'll still have a removable faceplate. This will still plug in the back somehow here. There you go. And what I'm going to do is just have two little studs coming off of here on either side, and I'm basically going to just use a zip tie to kind of zip tie between the two and hold that into place. It holds pretty good, but I'm thinking after a few bumps and stuff, it could pop out because there's not any real retention there. So speaking of the, and I know I'm bouncing around a little bit here. Speaking of mounting the head unit, the Ford Explorer has a second here, let me grab it. Okay, the Ford Explorer has a tray on top of the dash, and it's useless. Anything you put in there, you take a corner, it goes flying. So my idea was to mount the head unit somehow up on top. So, you know, it's up on top of the dash, the head unit sits there. And I kind of set off to do this blindly. I started making just just this square opening on just basically the seat of my pants, and it evolved into this. I'm actually pretty proud of this. This has probably been one of the best things I've worked on in a while. It came out so nice. It came out perfect. What it is, it's just wood. I put it together, glued it together, and it's at one point it was, you know, squared off at the edges. So I kind of made an angle in there, an angled relief. It's even slightly curved on the back. That's not the lens. I have the GoPro set to narrow, so it should be pretty much, you know, pretty straight. But it's actually got a curve to it to match the curve of the of this. This has a slight curve. And what it does is just sits in there just perfect. Sits in there nice. It's matches up nice to the dash, you can see. And this actually slides in from the back. And it's actually got a pretty good pressure fit. What I'm going to do is just basically just run a bead of glue once I get it set in place, because I don't need this bracket to come out, but I do want to retain the detachable faceplate. So, and this so that's how that's going to look, and it will be covered in vinyl. I have vinyl that matches this pretty darn close. So that's actually one of my next projects, is I got to make upholster this more or less. I'm going to try to get some of that on video, because if you can figure out how to do some of the more complicated patterns, you can really make some cool stuff. So the next time you see this, we'll be working on covering that. So that's that fun little project there. I did make a test cover with some scraps, just to kind of make sure it was feasible, and it worked quite well. I didn't have I obviously carelessly cut the opening. So okay, so we went over the basics of that. There are some auxiliary items here too. I made a new USB hub. I got an Amazon Basics. I ordered 2 USB cables with what is it, 28 gauge data wires, 24 gauge power wires. I replaced the USB cable that came on this cheap Amazon Basics with one of these, and then I basically made it a split. I split it, and I'll put a couple pictures up, maybe just to, I don't know how they came out. If they came out good, I'll put the pictures up. So basically this is a self-powered hub now. The cable that goes towards the tablet all it does is transfers data, and it has a ground in it. The other one, all it does is supplies power, and power and ground. So it is self-powered, self-contained, so that works pretty well. I will be using the DAC that I was using. I don't even know what brand it is. It was cheap, but it works really good. I've never had a problem with it. I will be also trying to split my audio this time, so I will have not only the audio from the tablet, which comes across through the DAC and into the auxiliary input of the head unit, but I'm also going to attach a auxiliary input, female auxiliary input, and I'm hoping to be able to split. So if I ever want to plug something else in, an MP3 player for whatever reason, or my cell phone, whatever, I'll have that capability. Why? Because I can. The other thing I'm going to be doing is running a USB extension cable from the back of the head unit to the same little port. I have a little, in my center console, it has a 3.5mm phone jack and a USB for auxiliary inputs. I'll be running this extension from the head unit down there so I can also have a thumb drive. I have not figured out how to make a thumb drive reliably work with this tablet, and it kills me. I really wish I could figure that out. It kind of seems like the solution is to just get a newer tablet because this one's just not supported anymore. I can get it to read music one time, and then after that it kind of craps out on me. So that's kind of like a little experiment too. And then last but not least, well, I have my noise eliminator here too, so that's going to go in line. This will be mounted, the hub will be mounted in my glove box, so it's easy to access. And last but not least is the Easy Cap. This thing also gives me fits. It's a little clunky. You can see it only has one wire coming out of it. They normally have four. There's usually a audio, video, and actually this is supposed to be yellow, but I fried it goofing around with it, so I ended up using the white connector, and I just switched the pins. But I removed the other two RCAs and also the S-Video out of there just to make it a little neater. What I have to do with this is I need to actually the reverse circuit that initiates the reverse camera function. I'm going to have it also power this, because what happens is the tablet doesn't, every time the tablet wakes from sleep, this thing tries to open, and then you have to wait for it to say signal lost, and then it shuts off. Well, the only problem with that is sometimes it freezes the tablet. So I don't want to do that. I want it to work well. So alright, this video is getting a little long. I also have my mouse pad. I haven't decided whether I'm going to use that or not. There's not really a great place to mount it without losing something important. So let's talk real quick here about the mounting. In the Subaru, I used the little cubby. Worked great. It was a lot of work to make it fit, and it never fit perfectly. So what I got with this, and you'll forgive me, I will try to find the part number. I believe it is a Scorch double DIN install kit for the 06 to 2010 Ford Explorers. At first glance, I didn't think I was going to be able to use this, but after a little bit of goofing around, and I also had to modify the sides of my tablet a little bit. You can see that they're black instead of silver. I kind of shaved it down with the side of a razor blade just to thin it out a little bit. It actually slides right in here. So I'm going to kind of show you how it goes together, and then that should be the last time I take this apart for a while. So I kind of wanted to capture that on video in case you guys want to try to do the same thing. So bear with me, and I will try to get this together for you. Okay, how this works is inside this ring, you'll see that there's a slot here now that normally would be solid, and it takes quite a bit of trimming, but it's not bad to clean that up. And really what you want to do is inside here, this inner rectangle is kind of what you want to sit against your LCD, the tablet. you want to make your slot here ever so slightly below that plane, because you don't want that to hold your LCD off of that back. And then on this part, you just kind of shave it, shave it pretty flush. So this is essentially how it goes together. It's pretty easy. I'll try to get a shot of it here. It goes in USB side first, and you'll see it's a pretty tight fit on the sides there, but you just kind of push it in, and it's going to go till it snaps down, and it's going to go too far on this side, and then you can just push it back. And then once you push it back, it kind of squares itself up, and then there you have. And the nice thing about this versus the Subaru is I don't have to worry about it being a little cockeyed. Number one, it's not cockeyed. It's perfectly centered on there. So there's absolutely no problems with it, like I said, with lines that are supposed to be straight not being straight, etc. It fits in there perfect. The other nice thing about this is I'm using the whole kit here. I'll have to make sure I remember how to put this together. So this just kind of snaps together. Like so. And I don't know how good this is going to turn out. Apologize if I get in the way here. So you get your side pieces like that, and this is the bottom, this is the top, and then what ends up happening is this, your head unit, screws in right like that. Once you screw your head unit in like that, you've essentially got a complete, just like a doubled in kit. So it's going to be hard to do on camera, so I'm going to pause for a second. I have some screws over here. I'm just going to screw it together and just kind of give you an idea of what this looks like right before it goes into the dash. Here's the complete assembly. As you can see, it's nice and sturdy. It's not falling apart. The head unit fits perfectly between there because it's a standard width. USB is accessible. The actual USB for the tablet's a little bit hard to get to, but you don't ever have to unplug that. So all your connections are here, your power connection's here. All you have to do at this point is you hook up your stereo, hook up your subwoofer, you hook up your power connector for the tablet, and then you plug in your audio from the DAC, which at one point I had sitting right here, but will now be behind my glove box. So you'll hook the DAC straight into the head unit. Plug in your antenna, plug in your mics, plug in your remotes, and mount it up like you normally would mount up a double-din radio. And in this case, the only difference is I'll have a cable to run up top to plug in the head unit for everything to work. So that's basically how that works. I'm not going to fire it up right now. I have the tablet completely powered down just because I'm still fiddling with it. And you can see that it, like I said, it fits well. And you'll see when it goes in the car, you'll see how nice it works. It's really such a better solution than that the Subaru one was. It only takes about 3 minutes to dump all this stuff out to get this out. This whole thing comes out with 4 screws, everything unplugs, everything unhooks. Even this situation here, how I'll end up working this is I have some 3M. You see it over there. It's the stuff that you use for like your Easy Pass. It's called like Dual Lock or something like that. It's not actual Velcro. It's both sides are hard plastic and they snap together. So what I'm going to do is just have a couple points, because that stuff's so strong. Couple points just to keep this from when I'm pushing buttons sliding around. But so basically you'll unsnap that, unsnap, that stays on the car. You'll lift that up, you'll reach under here, pull the connector, move that out of the way, and the ribbon cable will just fish down through a small opening in this. So overall removal of the system is a piece of cake. It really couldn't be easier. So we'll plug all this in on the next installment here, or probably the next installment of this is going to be, you know, messing with this the radio pod, as I'm calling it. But pretty soon I'll show you how this all mounts up. The functionality is the same, so I probably won't get into that too much, but you can see that it's a nice solution. It really works so much better than the other solution. And I'll kind of let you know how the GPS antenna fans out, and I might actually take it back apart one more time. I just wanted to make a video to show the actual setup because I think it's neat. I like it a lot. I don't listen to CDs. I don't need a CD player. I don't even own CDs anymore. Any CD I own is so scratched it doesn't even read. So the thumb drive holds anything you could possibly want, and if you own the CD, it's not, you know, you just put it on thumb drive. So it there's less power issues doing it this way versus before. I had like a cigarette lighter extension cord that had a female, and then it just had the power plug plugged into that. It just was a mess. This is solid. I think it even charges better doing it this way. It just seems to work better. I have a ton more thoughts on that, but this is already probably like 30 minutes long. So I'll chop it up best I can, and then we'll pick this up when I get done doing the upholstery on that. We can take all this out and hook it up, find a place to mount this, run the wiring, and see how it goes. But hopefully you guys like that. If you have any questions about how I mounted this, this is mostly gonna, actually this doesn't just apply to you Ford Explorer guys. This kit was good for a lot of different cars. I think it's mostly the newer ones, the newer Fords, or maybe it covered them all. I don't know. Basically, if you have a Ford with the double din, an opening that can support a double din, you might be able to use this kit and do exactly what I did, and it works really, really, really good. And you'll see that when we go outside. So thanks for watching, and like I said, keep an eye out for the next installment. We'll be messing around with some fabrics and sewing and patterns and all kinds of good stuff, and we'll get this finished up. Thanks for watching.